What is up, quarantiners? It is week 8 of quarantine. We're on day 2 here. I am now back in the studio, trying to work on just developing a really good daily process for getting some work done. It's still way too early to start thinking about client work and reaching out to clients and trying to jump back into the economy because things are still completely shut down here in New York. So I'm just trying to jump into the studio every day and spend some time working on my process, working on my long-term strategy for basically being able to develop a really successful business. And so right now I'm working on a website where I keep track of my to-dos, my journaling, the clients that I'm working with, my cash flow projections, things like that. And this week I'm implementing a new goal section where I can basically set goals by day, week, or month, and then review my goals on a regular basis and make sure that I'm making progress on these goals on a regular basis. So yesterday I spent about 2 hours implementing the back end for this new goal section on the website. And I started on the front end. I basically recorded the whole session as a live coding session. And in editing that, I did about 2 hours of coding. I realized that it's actually pretty fucking boring watching somebody just code live. So I think what I'm going to do today, in order to cut this down into a much more interesting and meaningful chunk that somebody might actually be interested in watching, what I've done is I've gone and done all the coding up front to figure out exactly how I want to implement this. And then what I'll do is I'll walk you through my thought process and show you exactly what the updates are that I'm doing that enables the website to work in the way that I need it to work. So yesterday we implemented here on on our local version of this website, we implemented this new goal section right here. And this is what we want it to look like eventually. So we've got daily, weekly, and yearly goals. You can have a goal state of be active, where it's just gray with an open checkbox. We can have a goal state of complete, which turns green with a check mark. And then we can have a failed goal, where if we reach the end of the time frame, let's say the end of the day or the end of the week or the end of the year, and we didn't make sufficient progress on that goal, we can mark that goal as failed. And that just enables us to hold ourselves accountable for when we're not making sufficient progress on goals. And also it enables us to think about pushing that goal forward to the next period. So whether it's tomorrow or the next week or the next year, we can take the goals that we didn't really complete, and we can add them to our goals for the upcoming period. So on the website here, we've basically got the front end looking good in terms of being able to create new goals and having those goals show up here for each individual project. So I'm in the Serenity project right now. You can see that on the main website, I have projects for basically my personal stuff. Serenity is this website. Fredrickson Studios is my photo studio. And then a couple other projects that I have, kind of long-term video projects. One is the Future Purpose and one is Real Model Stories. But today we're working on Serenity. You can see this is what the live website looks like. We've got to-dos, we've got pages that are kind of like subsections of projects. And then we've got the journal here at the bottom. And right now we are implementing the goals section next to the journal. And this is our local version of the site, our testing version. So the goal now is to be able to click on these goals and have them toggle between successful states. So it starts out as active. When I click on it, it should go to complete. If I click on it again, it'll go to failed. And if I click on it again after that, it'll go back to active, so that I can keep toggling through it just by clicking on it. And yesterday we ran into a bug where when we were clicking on the goal, it was changing the CSS class to give it a new style, but it was doing it twice for some reason. And I posted on Stack Overflow. I got some really interesting feedback about that overnight. And I realized that I kind of just need to be refactoring that function from the ground up, because I was, coding live on camera is interesting because you're explaining your thought process and you're kind of showing how you go about problem solving. But at the same time, I feel like maybe it's just a longer term thing that I need to get better at. In reviewing the video after the fact, I realized I was just not being the smartest in the way that I was implementing things. So what I've done now is I've gone back and I've refactored this code to basically enable this to work so that it submits to the back end, it updates the object on the back end, and it also then sends a response back to the front end, which then updates the CSS class to show the user that the goal has been updated. So if I click this again, it now shows it as failed. If I click it again, it is now back to active. Click it again, complete, failed, active. So you can just toggle through those three states. And the nice thing is now this is sending an update request to the server to let it know to update that goal every time the user clicks on it. So let me show you how I implemented that. The nice thing is by refactoring our code, we actually ended up getting rid of that bug that was causing it to submit twice for whatever reason. Here we are in our application JavaScript file. We have a section here where we're essentially assigning a function to the click action. So when a user clicks on any element that has a CSS class of goal-label, it's going to run this set of code here. This is the code block that gets executed on click. So first, we're going to start by getting the ID of the element. And if I pull up the HTML for this, so if you look at the HTML for the label, this is the code block that shows the actual goal on the front end. You can see that it has an ID of goal dash, and then we pull the ID from the actual object. So it's goal dash ID. So what we need to do here in the JavaScript is get the goal ID by saying this element that was clicked on, get the ID of that element, so attribute ID, and then match a regular expression where we're just pulling out any number that we can find. So we know that the goal ID is always going to be goal dash number. So whatever number we can match in that, we're going to pull that out, and that's going to give us the actual ID of the element. Next, we're going to get the status, the current status of the goal. And if you look in the HTML, the class is where we're specifying the status, because the class is essentially the styling for the different statuses. So it'll be either goal status underscore goal. So it'll be like active underscore goal, or complete underscore goal, or failed underscore goal. Those are the different classes that the three different states can have. So in order to get the status, we'll pull it directly from that class. So when it first loads the page and the goal is an active goal, it'll have a class of active underscore goal. So to get the status, we're going to say for the element that was clicked on, that's this, we're going to get the class attribute. Then we're going to match that with this \w represents any letter characters. And if you put a plus after it, it says any number of them. So any number of letter characters that precede the text underscore goal, it's going to match that whole string. So the string that gets matched is essentially going to be either active underscore goal, failed underscore goal, or complete underscore goal. So match, that function there returns an array of all of the results. We only want the first results in the array. So we're going to say here of the array, take the 0th index. That's the first one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to replace that resulting string, because the string is active underscore goal. We just want the word active. We're going to replace the section of the string that says underscore goal with a blank string. So this whole line here basically says status is equal to either active, complete, or failed. So now that we have the status, we need to define what the new status is going to be. So this is just a little else if statement to assign a new status to the current status. So if the status is active, the new status is going to be complete. If the status is complete, the new status will be failed. If the status is failed, the new status will be active, right? So now we have the goal ID, we have the current status of the goal, and then we have what we want the new status to be. So next what we're going to do is we're going to do an asynchronous JavaScript request to the backend to basically tell the backend, hey, we want to update this goal with the new status. So we do that using the jQuery Ajax function, and that enables us to pass a URL that we want to submit this request to. So the URL is going to be /goals/goal ID. Then the type of request that we want, the different HTML requests that you can have are either get, put, patch, which is update, and then delete, I believe, is for destroy. And then the data that we want to pass to it. So the data is basically the goal status. It looks like that. So goal is a hash object and status is one part of that hash. And we're going to pass the value of new status to the status. We want to update it with this new status. We want to make sure that we're specifying our data type as JSON so that the server knows to reply with a JSON request and not an HTML request, which will redirect us to a new page. We don't want that. We want it to come back with the data asynchronously to our page without refreshing anything. And then on success, when we get a success notice from the server that basically says, hey, we got your request, we updated it the way you wanted it, and we're letting you know that we did it successfully. So we'll get that information back from the server. And when we get that success, we want to take that data and we want to run a function called toggle goal check and pass the data to that function. So down here, I've written that function toggle goal check, taking in that data. We're going to, when we run this function, we're going to basically look up the element that we want to toggle the status of the goal for. And we do that by finding the element ID. So the ID of the elements for goals are goal dash goal ID. So we take goal dash and then data ID, because the data that's passed back from the server is the goal object. Then we want to make sure that we clear all status related classes, right? Rather than iterating through them and be like, if it has this one, add this one. Let's just clear them all and start from a clean slate. That way we don't end up with multiple. If there's some weird bug, we end up with multiple versions of a goal state. So we remove every class. So on the element, remove class active goal, remove class complete goal, and remove class failed goal. So that removes all three of those. And then we just add the new class. So we do element.add class, and then we pull the status from the data object that got passed back from the server, and we add an underscore of goal, because that's how we're defining the classes in the HTML. And it's that simple. So basically an asynchronous request goes to the server. We take the result, and then we use the data from the result to assign a new class to the goal on the front end. And voila, here we have it. Click on it once, it goes to the server. And the nice thing is we can check our server, which is running locally here. You can see, let's clear it. This is a server log that's running live on my local server, so that you can see all the requests that come in. Let's clear that so we don't have any visible requests. And now when I click on the goal, it's currently a completed goal. So it should be sending a request to the server that says, update this goal to be failed when I click on this. So let's test that. Click. And you can see what that request looks like on the back end here. It started a patch, which is what we told it to do. Patch meaning update on the URL goals/2. And then it says we processed the update section of the controller, which is what Rails knows to do. When it receives a patch request, it knows to process the update section of a controller with the parameters goal status failed, right? Because it was completed, so we wanted to update it to failed. This is weird. It's actually submitting twice. I can see that we have the same bug we had before. That's so funny. We'll have to see if we can fix that. But anyway, it's pulling the user, making sure that we have the current user from the database. It's pulling the goal from the database that has all the goal information for goal number 2. And then it's saying update that goal and set the status to whatever the new status is that's being submitted. And then it says it's completed. It responds with a code of 200, which is the HTML code for success, which then just gets sent back to the front end, and it doesn't even have to load a new HTML page. It just sends that 200 status back to the web browser, and voila, our code on the front end says, cool, we got a 200 status, so let's update with that new goal status. And now we can see that the goal is marked as failed. So let's find out why we're still submitting that asynchronous request twice when I click on it. It's really bizarre that I keep running into that one issue. So the way that I was able to fix it before was to make sure that we're returning something at the end of this function. So I can say, after we run that asynchronous request, let's kill this click function, because the click function seems to be running twice. So what if we say return false at the end of that click function? And I click this, and now let's clear that, testing it again. And now look, it's only running that update once. It's not running it twice. So it looks like at the end of our jQuery function that gets called on a click, for some reason, it's doubling it up. So if we add this return false at the end, it'll kill the function and it won't recall it. So still not sure what's causing that to happen. I don't usually add a return statement at the end, but we know that that's working, so we'll run with it. So there you can see that is the functionality of the goals. So we can create new goals. They go into this goals section here on the specific project page, and we can update those goals just by clicking on them. So that looks pretty good. Let's go to our main live website and let's update our to-dos. So we had a to-do to fix the bug in the goals label toggling. We fixed that. Finish goals front-end implementation. Awesome. I think we're finished with that. Let's just test it through one more time. So let's say we wanted to add a new goal to the Serenity project. We click plus, and it takes us to the new goal page. Notice how in the top here, it's passing project ID to the URL. So this URL should be able to recognize, hey, we want to create a new goal for project number 1. But if you look in the list here, it doesn't have project number 1 selected. It has a different project selected. So what that means is in our new goal page, it's not taking that project ID from the URL and assigning it to that project dropdown. So we need to update that. So we've got new. Notice when we go to the new project page, it's creating a new goal object just by saying current user.goals.new. That basically means for the current user, create a new goal with the user ID set to the current user's ID. So what we need to do is we need to update the project ID to be equal to this parameter project ID that we're passing in the URL. So we'll say goal.project ID equals params project. And now if we refresh this page, look at that. It knows that the project should be set to Serenity because Serenity has the project ID of 1. Now, what happens if we get rid of that parameter? Then it just defaults to the top one on the top, which is totally fine. So now if we go to Serenity and we want to create a new goal, it automatically specifies the project for that goal as being Serenity. And if I go to a different project, let's go to personal, and I create a new goal, it's automatically selected the project as personal. And the nice thing is this works for sub projects as well. So if I go to the client section, for example, under Serenity, and I create a new goal, it selects the project here as Serenity-clients, which is exactly correct. All right, so let's go back to Serenity. Let's create a new goal, and let's call it test goal 2. Aha. So here's another thing that we haven't finished the implementation for. By default, the scaffolding that we initially created this new goal section with, when you create a new goal, it just takes you to view that goal. We don't want to view that goal because we're never going to actually use this page. We want to take you back to the project for the goal that you created. So in our goals controller, in our create section, this is what the section that defines what happens when you create a new goal. We want to say after the goal gets saved, we don't want to redirect to the goal. We want to redirect to the goal.project. Same thing for a JSON request. Well, we're not going to worry about the JSON just yet. So for the HTML version, let's go to projects, Serenity. And you can see here that new goal was created, but it redirected us to the goal show page instead of back to the project page, which is where we want to come back to. So let's test this again. Test goal 3. Boom. Takes us back to the project page, and it shows us our goals here. So we can check any of these goals as completed. We can also check them as failed, or we can set them back to active. And boom, I think we have a fully functioning goals section. Now, notice the design isn't matching yet the design that we have here in Photoshop. We also don't have an ability yet to specify if our goals are daily goals, weekly goals, or yearly goals. And we haven't implemented the front end for toggling through past goals. So if we're looking at our current daily goals, we should be able to check back on Monday, Sunday, Saturday, flip through them and see what our progress was like on those days. And same thing if we're on weeks, we should go back to previous weeks and all that. So that's still stuff that we're going to have to implement. But what I'm really trying to do is cut down the amount that I'm doing on each video every day. So let's just wrap up this specific section in this video for today, and I'll show you how I update this to my server. Okay, so if we run get status, we can see which files have been updated. We've updated our application JavaScript, and we've also updated our goals controller. Now we can say get commit -all and with a message, and we will say finishing front end implementation for goals on project pages. Boom. Now, because we are pretty happy with the current state that this is in, we've done a bunch of different commits to create this new goals section. What we want to do is we want to push those commits to our server. My server is running on Heroku, which is a great backend for Ruby on Rails development. So all I need to do to push that to the server is say git push Heroku and then the master branch of this Git project. And this will push the new code to the server. I will have to, after the code goes, I'm going to have to run a database update because we did create a new migration in order to create these new goals in the database. So we'll wait for this commit to finish. You can see here it is making sure that all of my gems are up to date. Gems are basically code packages that you can use that give you certain kinds of functionality that other people have built, and you can kind of just adopt them. So we use quite a few different gems here in order to get this application to run the way we want it to run. And boom, we are done deploying to Heroku. Now, what you'll notice is because I haven't updated the database on the production server, if I refresh the page, sorry, something went wrong. And in production, it doesn't tell you what went wrong. And I should probably update this this page that just says, sorry, something went wrong, to maybe be a little bit more informative and branded. But that's another thing we'll have to add to the list. So we know what the issue is. Issue is we need to update our database and run our migration. So we will say Heroku run rake db migrate. And boom, it'll log into my Heroku server. It will run rake db migrate, which is the command to migrate the database using the migrations that we already submitted yesterday. And that should be done. Now, if we go back and refresh our page, voila, look at that. On our live server, we have goals now. So what do we want our goals to be for today? Let's say implement new goal section. Oh, we have a bug. Look at that. We've got a bug. Okay. So we have a bug. And it's interesting that this bug is only happening in production, not happening locally. So there's some difference between our production and our local. What happens if we inspect this element locally? We can see we've got a label. Inside that label, we have an input of type checkbox. And on the server, we have a label with input type checkbox. It looks the same. But if we look locally and we click on that label or even click on the checkbox, we can see that we have a CSS definition for that checkbox of position absolute opacity 0. Let's check that on the server. I'm not seeing that on the server. So we don't seem to have the new CSS style sheets. So let's find out why that happened. Heroku assets not. Oh, you know, we have to precompile our assets. That's what it is. All right, here we go. Let's run this. Rails, production environment, execute, rake, assets, precompile, and notice how that updated our JavaScripts and created these new assets that go into the public folder, and then we have to commit those. Compiling assets. You know what I think it was? When I did the commit of the compiled assets, I don't think I included the untracked files. You have to actually add those to the commit. You can't just do it with the -a. -a only adds updated files, not untracked files. So you have to do git add star to add all untracked files and then do the commit. So let's see if that works. Refreshing our production page. Voila. Everything is looking perfect. So we always have to compile our assets after we update things like our JavaScript and style sheets. So now we are on our production server, a production website. We've got our new goal section here. I'm on the Serenity project. I say for Serenity on Tuesday, May 5th, I want to implement a new goal section. And I think that goal is complete. So let's check it off. Boom, look at that. It updated. So we also want to make sure that update actually went to the server, although we know it did because we don't update the styling locally until we get a response from the server. But just to be sure, let's refresh this page and that goal should still have a status of complete. Awesome. Let's just double check that the full functionality works. Let's click one more time, and now the goal is marked as failed. One more time, the goal is marked as active, and boom. One more time, and the goal is complete. Now let's create another goal for today. Project is Serenity because that was the place where we were when we clicked the new goal button. And the goal is finish shorter web dev video by 4 p.m. So my goal today is to get out of here by 4 o'clock, or at least be finished around 4 o'clock so I can get home at a more decent hour tonight. One of the challenges in quarantine, when you don't have external factors kind of forcing you to keep somewhat normal scheduling, usually I'll have client work, or I'll have projects with clients where I have to meet with clients or go to events or whatever. And those things kind of hold you to a more regular schedule. So you finish at the end of the day, you go to bed, you get up, you start a new day. In quarantine, it's very easy to allow your days to drift. So like last night, I didn't finish editing the video until midnight. And the biggest thing that I learned from that video was that I need to really shorten what I'm presenting on video to make it more interesting. So hopefully today was a little bit better in that regard. But yeah, my goal today now is going to be to get this video edited. It's almost 2 o'clock now by 4 p.m. So that gives me 2 hours to do this edit. We've shot for about 40 minutes, a little over 40 minutes. So if I did a 2-hour shoot in, probably about 4 or 5 hours yesterday, we're going to try to do a 40-minute shoot in 2 hours. I think we can bang that out. So we'll see how that goes. Tomorrow, I'm going to be back in here with another short video of something new that I'm working on, and hopefully we'll start to see some progress on this project and on other updates here in the studio. There's a lot I can be doing around here to make the studio better and ready for client work once things start to pick up again. So anyway, I'd love to hear how you're dealing with quarantine, what your experience has been like with the economy shut down. How you're finding ways to stay creative and productive and just engaged with something interesting on a day-by-day basis. That is going to be the challenge for us in this downtime. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know how you're doing. And thanks for checking this out. And I will see you tomorrow. Peace.